Right. Correct.
not why.
Correct.
This is just
Yeah.
what we do. We recommend 6 weeks. So just I want you to not lift anything for 6 weeks. But yeah, but why? So
Right.
Joe
Right.
told you what's, you know, doctors. Why do they not? This is a real good question. I think this is an excellent. Why do they not deal with why?
I
Because
don't think they know.
they don't know. There's only two explanations. They don't know, or they don't think you'll understand.
Possibly. Yep.
So neither
Yep.
of which are acceptable.
No. No.
Yes.
No. I've had various surgeries before after various incidents and injuries, and I had the same thing you're talking about. All the doctors, don't lift for 8 weeks. None of them could tell me why. And a week later, I was working out without any kind of problems.
Right.
But the caution from Dr. Bush, hey, you don't want to lift anything heavy because you don't want to tear your urethra. That
That,
made me stay
well,
away from the weight room for 6 weeks.
that's a reasonable thing then. That's quite
Yeah, yeah,
reasonable. And if the the wall of the urethra is significantly weakened by the heat, it's got to heal. And
yes,
if you tear it, now we've got a very unpleasant revision procedure that has to be
correct,
taken care
correct.
of. So it's bad deal.
Yeah.
Bad deal.
So the only restrictions were no sex and no heavy lifting for 6 weeks, and
Right.
after that, all restrictions off.
And everything's been fine since.
Yeah. So got back. It took me probably 10 weeks to start getting my erections back normally.
Right.
That varies. There's some research out with this that says some people don't get it back for up to 18 months to 2 years.
Wow.
Can So it's really varied on how much of the prostate was hit and whether or not it was close to the nerves
How
or
close
not.
they
But
got to the nerve, because nerves heal
right.
very, very slowly, if at
That's
all.
exactly it. So,
Yeah.
so there's two nerves there that control that, and one of my tumors was adjacent to those nerves. So Dr. Bush has had patients that have recovered their erections within a week. As soon as they removed their catheter, it took a little longer for me.
Mm-hmm.
I never had any urinary issues at all. As soon as I pulled the catheter, I was completely continent, no drips, no nothing. Even with heavy squats and deadlifts, sprints, no problems. And then started getting erections back. About half speed, about 10 weeks, and it's just been a steady improvement since then. So it's been 9 months now since I've had my surgery. Feel good, everything's working perfectly. Had a 6-month follow-up MRI, no sign of any cancer anywhere. It looks like it's all gone, and I've got no side effects at all.
Well, this is just a absolutely stellar outcome for this kind of a situation.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many people could say the same thing about the standard medical industry prostatectomy approach. I bet nobody
You know,
can say that.
No, and they changed the definitions, and this is what people don't understand. The doctors will tell you after the standard prostatectomy, you have a 30% chance of having erectile difficulties. But what they consider erectile difficulties aren't what you and I would consider erectile difficulties. They don't consider it a difficulty unless Viagra, Cialis, and the injections don't work. So they assume going into it that you're going to need some type of a prescription medication to get hard again. And only when that fails do they consider it a failure for the purpose of the study. So when you really look at those numbers, that 30% of people that they
Is
say
really
won't
about
get hard
90%.
again, it's really over 90%.
Yeah.
And then
Sure.
they don't consider urinary problems as long as you're using fewer than one pad a day, just some minor drippage. That's not a problem. You
That's
might
not a
leak
problem.
a little
No.
bit.
No, of course not.
Right. So that when you factor in that, now you're at the 70-80% of guys who've had the traditional prostatectomy that are going to leak, depending on where their cancer is and what they had to remove and all that kind of stuff. But comparing that was why I decided I didn't want treatment until I, talked to Dr. Bush and found this alternate treatment that's only been approved in the USA for 3 years now. I wasn't going to get the treatment because I wasn't going to tolerate those side effects.
Next time on Starting Strength Radio, we are going to follow up on a conversation we had with Dr. Joe Bush about prostate cancer and his method of treating it. We're going to talk to our friend Greg Ellifritz, who had his prostate cancer treated by Dr. Bush, and we're going to talk about all of the gory details of that situation, his journey, as they say nowadays, through the wasteland of the medical services industry into Dr. Bush's office. Now, be here. Guys need to hear this. This is very, very important. So we'll see you then on Starting Strength Radio.